Hey guys, it's Matt LaRosiere. A lot of you guys have been aware of the auto keycard case, and some of you have been aware that I'm involved in the case. I'm one of the lawyers representing defendant Matthew Hoover. Well, recently we made a filing, and it's kind of made a bit of news. There's been a few videos and articles, and I thought you guys might want to hear from the actual lawyers responsible for it. So I have brought on here my good friend and co-counsel, Zachary Zerme. Zach, thank you for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Matt.
Right, and so of course this is Zach Zerme. He's with Zerme Law, a Florida law firm, and Zach and I have worked together since we took the bar, actually together on the same day, in Tampa, and we met
Yeah,
there. Yeah, we kind of hit it off, and we've been working together for a long time on a lot of different cases, haven't we?
yeah, I think it was carne chopped, and we got some drinks. There. It was a fun time.
Yeah, they had probably the best espresso martinis I've had in that part of the state. But so, of course, we got involved in this case. Of course, firearms law is something that is very important to me and is pretty much the bread and butter of my practice. And I just knew that Zach was the right person to go at this with. And so Zach's actually lead counsel on this case. And of course, I'm able to help as much as I possibly can in my off hours. This particular motion, I remember being up till like 4 a.m. with the two of us working on it together. But we have a client in a very horrible situation, don't we?
Oh yes, Matt's currently facing several years in federal prison for doing nothing more than talking about a drawing, which is wildly unfair. And as the motion pretty clearly indicates, is actually unconstitutional under the new Bruin standard, which I think we laid it out in the motion pretty well, right, Matt?
I think so too, and not only that, but we had filed motions before. I think this is unconstitutional in a lot of ways, right? Because let's just remember here, this isn't just us questioning the National Firearms Act. There's a whole lot here. This is a First Amendment violation. Not only is the auto keycard itself properly categorized as art, talking about it is also expression, right? Doing all of this type of speech surrounding this stuff is protected in multiple ways by the Constitution. And on top of that, the Constitution protects us from arbitrary rulemaking, right? That threatens severe criminal enforcement without the passage of any law. There's no notice, right? It is the duty of the government, and this is something that's been the case for ever, really. The government has the duty to inform you what is and is not illegal. And if the average person cannot know what is and is not covered, well, that's unconstitutionally vague as well. So there's a lot of constitutional challenges here that we've brought up, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, a lot of moving parts to this one. In the original motion before the Bruin decision came out, we did we did move the court to find the statute unconstitutionally vague facially and it's applied to the Matt, which I think is a pretty compelling argument. And it should be interesting to see how the government tries to address that.
Right.
But yeah,
I do
of
think
course,
there are some things that we need to clear up first, because again, like there's been a few people talking about this, a few of which have my cell phone number. So I was a bit frustrated when they, made videos reading from our motion without even calling me. But that aside, Zach, I know there were a few things you wanted to clarify about, who's involved in this case.
we've actually it's only Zerme Law currently that's representing Matt. We have no organizational or institutional support at the moment, apart from the wonderful donations that we got from GoFundMe, which we of course thank you guys for. But to the extent that anybody thinks that there's organizational backing from like the NRA or Gun Owners of America, we're just solo right now. We're on our own in this fight, fighting for first and foremost for Matt's freedom, but also to potentially get rid of the National Firearms Act 1934.
Right. And of course, that's another thing that we have to make painfully clear here. Like one of the videos said, NFA to be repealed. It's like, that's not what's going on here. Repeal is a legislative process. We are look, there was a command for lawyers that was in place for a long time, and that was we were required to zealously advocate for our clients. And a few years back, they took out the word zealous, which I always thought was incredibly odd. I mean, don't you think that was odd, Zach?
Yeah, it's probably because they thought there were too many Z's in the legal system. That being Zach, zealous, something like that. But
Right.
yeah, no, it's. I think that the zealousness is a good thing, and
Yeah.
if we happen to protect our clients and get them out from under this criminal jeopardy, and by happenstance knock out the National Firearms Act, and that's just a bonus prize
Right.
for the zealous advocacy.
Right. Well, so the point I'm making there is that we don't agree with that. We still think that zealousness is a duty that we owe to our clients because, I mean, just think about this. When you are up against this massive, cumbersome, and expensive machine, you need somebody who's going to fight their absolute hardest. And that's what we're doing here. And that's what we'd be doing no matter what. Matt Hoover's he's been a friend of ours for a while. There's no way that we weren't going to put in our best fight, that we aren't going to fight like hell for him. So that's our number one priority here is I need, and Zach needs, we need our friend Matt free. We need him free of this horrible sword of Damocles like hanging over his head. Because let's be real here. He didn't do anything wrong. I really feel that way, and I'm going to advocate that way. I'm going to advocate for his interests zealously to the bitter end, and that's what's driving us here. We're, of course, part of that zealous fight is attacking the constitutionality of the statutes that he was charged under. I mean, right?
Yes, that's 100% the case. Again, the main goal in this, or that Matt and I have at the moment with respect to this case, is to make sure that Matt is no longer under criminal jeopardy at the moment. And part of that, the National Firearms Act itself is in the way. And we find the statute problematic constitutionally. And so we're going ahead and proceed going down in this direction.
And so I'd like to talk a little bit about the act because a lot of people are confused. Some people have, we've gotten a lot of emails in the past couple of weeks, some of which helpful, others not so helpful. I actually had one guy saying, actually brought up, what's this going to do to the value of my machine gun collection? It's like, it was so hard for me not to just say, go fuck yourself, right? Like we're talking about the government threatening to lock people in cages, right? For exercising the thing that you enjoy to do because you're privileged. You have the money to purchase machine guns, or to, go through the licensing product to make new ones, which of course would only be available for sale to non-ordinary people, as is of course inconsistent with the Constitution, I think. But we have to remember that. So I don't think people should be thinking about that. I think we should be thinking about what's right and what's lawful, right?
Yeah, the whole idea that screw you, I have my machine gun, and just because I have my machine gun that's protected by this tax stamp regime is utterly absurd. And go ahead and tell that to Matt, his wife, and his two daughters that, hey, you don't have a dad anymore because I wanted my machine gun to maintain its value.
Right.
And that's just not only bonkers, it's bad faith and absurd.
Right. And you and I have both, I'm not going to say that I haven't, you and I have both invested in historical firearms. But guess what? It doesn't matter. What matters is what's right. What matters is upholding our Constitution. So aside from that, it seems to me people are just really unclear about what's going on here. So some people think they just misunderstand what the NFA is. And so I think it's important for us to talk about this. I went through such hell to get these original pieces of congressional testimony where they were talking about passing the National Firearms Act. And think back to 1934, right? This is 1934. The Sullivan Law that the Supreme Court just overturned is from 1911. All right. In 1934, we didn't have all of these news agencies watching so closely over these congressional hearings. We didn't have this type of watchfulness over our government. In this Congress, when the NFA was originally passed, the prevailing animating spirit behind everything they were doing was to get around the Constitution, was to avoid it. And that's why we have such quotes as, Mr. Attorney General, how did we escape that provision of the Constitution? Which is, of course, he's talking about the Second Amendment. And then they bring it just like in the Obamacare question. They're like, no, we're not banning machine guns. It's a tax. And the Attorney General admits, if you were to say no one can own a machine gun anymore, well, that would be constitutionally problematic. However, if you tax the machine gun, in the words of the Attorney General, that's a whole different story, right? Because all they have to do is pay the tax. Of course, fast forward a few years later, where, again, the Supreme Court has not seen many Second Amendment cases, largely because there were not too many firearms laws. And of course, Miller being a whole separate thing, that there's a fascinating history of Miller. It was calculated by the government specifically to uphold the NFA, and it only did so in a very narrow context. And of course, the Miller test has not been revisited, really. Now we have a clear standard in Bruin. Now we have a clear standard for how these laws are going to be reviewed. And of course, we're of the position that our client never touched a machine gun in what he was doing here. However, they are still trying to use this law, which was passed as a tax, right? Tax, mind you, they collected no revenues for in the first year it was passed. That's suspicious. And then in 1986, they said, okay, well, you can't pay the tax anymore, right? That's constitutionally suspect. Because the whole theory of this is, no, we didn't ban it, we taxed it. And you go to prison if you don't pay the tax, and you're not allowed to pay the tax, right? I mean, Zach, does that sound constitutionally sound to you?
No, it doesn't. And I'd encourage any government official that wants to escape the provisions of the Constitution to get on a boat and go to Cuba, because that's a place where you can escape provisions of the Constitution. And I'll even charter the boat. I'll drive to Key West and we'll put them on a raft, ship them off to communist Cuba.
Yeah, that sounds like a decent place for them, actually. But all that aside, again, the statute is wildly problematic. People misunderstand the standards that are in play here, the standards that have been in play. And the simple fact is, the government has never carried its burden before with this law. And the point I was trying to get at, and maybe you'd like to speak on a little bit, Zach, we don't agree that the law should be implicated at all here because there were no machine guns. These were, and this is when we were writing the brief, Zach came up with this word, tchotchke, which I absolutely adore, and we stuck with the word tchotchke throughout the motion. Zach, why don't you tell the people what a tchotchke is?
So it's a trinket, whatchamacallit, something you could pick up at a bodega, perhaps, when you're traveling in New York City. It's just really anything. But what it isn't, it's not a machine gun. That's the one thing that's clear. And something that we probably need to harp on a little bit more is that we never, in any respect, admit or even suggest that the auto key card, this tchotchke, this trinket, this
who's it?
Yeah, is a machine gun. It's not a machine gun. What we are saying, though, is even if the court were to conclude, or the trier of fact were to conclude that it is a machine gun, well, the National Firearms Act of 34 is unconstitutional,
right,
facially and as applied.
Right, and so that's where you get into the different things we're asking for here. One, we attack the statute on its face. I think it's a good attack. Two, we attack it as applied. Now, this is the thing you do in litigation. I mean, Zach and I have been involved in criminal cases, and we've been involved in complex civil litigation. What you do is you plead in the alternative, right? You ask for several different things. So we're asking, the whole thing's unconstitutional. And if you disagree, then in this specific instance, your application of this law to this person is unconstitutional. And then on top of that, we've asked that the government demonstrate a deep history as required by Bruin, a deep history of laws where the government can, through a unelected administrative bureaucracy, decide which items are and are not regulated. So this is there's a lot going on here. When you understand how absolutely broken this system of laws is, the National Firearms Act is, you see how complicated it is to address. And that's why we've done it this way. We're fighting our absolute butts off here, and we're going to take every avenue that we possibly can. And that's the nature of the motion, right, Zach, in going in those alternative ways.
Yeah, that's true. And, it's I think it's fair to characterize, mostly our practice is a lot of civil complex litigation. And we're filing these, highly technical complex motions. And yes, we aren't acting like this is a normal criminal case, because it's not a normal run-of-the-mill criminal case. One, involves our client,
right?
So it immediately is the most important case ever. And second, there's all these constitutional issues, nuanced facts that make this just a category part. This isn't like a meth gang with a bunch of heavy weaponry crossing state lines. It's a dude in Wisconsin making YouTube videos about a tchotchke.
Right. And again, like I stress that it's a tchotchke, it's a trinket, it's a who's it, it's a what's it, right? And this is really important to me. We're talking about a etched piece of steel. The government publishes patents with all of the instructions that you could need to make whatever you want. And also, on top, like there's so much that the government hasn't even alleged. A lot of people completely misunderstand this case. This is a really horrifying overreach, and it breaks my heart so much what they're doing to Mr. Hoover, and that's why we're here. And we assured him we're here to fight like hell for you for the very end, and we're going to do absolutely anything it takes, and if that includes overturning a unconstitutional, evil, vile federal law, sounds cool.
Oh my God. If that's what it takes to get the decision and adjudication in this case that we need to get for Matt, then we're willing, able, prepared to do everything. Of course, the bounds of professionalism, to zealously advocate for our client.
Right, for sure. And so I don't know if Matt still has fundraisers or whatever going on, but I mean, Zach, I think you wanted to say something about that?
We again thank everybody for the money that was put forward in the GoFundMe for Matt's legal fees. We deeply appreciate it. However, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we have enough powder to take this all the way. And the GoFundMe is currently closed, and so we're just working with what we had in the account. We're not getting any organizational support. And so with that being said, we're asking, in the words of Bernie Sanders, we're asking you for more financial support. And so we're hoping to have another GoFundMe to raise another round so we could take this to the next stage of the proceedings.
Yeah, I mean, wherever it has to go, and we're lean. We're doing this for Matt. We're not billing the heck out of the file. We just want to be able to make sure that we have all of the tools we need if we have to go wherever we have to go. We already made him a promise. We're not going to stop unless and until he tells us to stop. If that means the 11th Circuit, if that means whatever. I don't. Zach, are you going to stop?
No, I'm not going to stop. I mean, we even moved transferred the venue of the case to Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm ready to go to Green Bay and start litigating there if that's what it takes to effectively get Matt acquitted of these bogus charges.
Get him his life back. Really. This is a man who never deserved this. I mean, think about what... Nobody's perfect. Think about anybody, whatever you want. Just remember, it's today thee, tomorrow me. So, just think about that. He's a good guy. He's a good salt of the earth dude. I've spent time with him. Zach and I both spent time with him. We had dinner with his family. He's got adorable kids, very animated family. But these are good people. And I can't believe that they're trying to do this to him.
He's the quintessential American, living the American dream before the United States Attorney's Office just decided to try to obliterate him. And that's what they're currently trying to do. And, my firms are May Law, and Matt and I are the only thing currently stopping him from being locked in a cage for several years while his leaving his family without a father.
Right. It's just unacceptable. So anyway, I hope that cleared things up for you guys. That's pretty much all I had to say. Zach, is there anything else?
Nope. Just mash that like and subscribe button.
Yep. Right on. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming. Zach, thanks for coming on the show, and thank you all so much for your support. I mean, I know that Hoover really needs it and really appreciates it from all of you guys. So thank you again. Y'all are really the wind in our sails, helping to keep us going. Of course, y'all and our wonderful client, Matt, who's a great guy that doesn't deserve to be punished like this.
He hasn't done anything wrong. That's one thing I want to make it clear. This is an injustice.
Yes. All right. Y'all take care.